Joan Herman, and this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Thanks for tuning in. Our guest today is Dr. Joe Vitale, the author of numerous best-selling books, including The Attractor Factor, Life's Missing Instruction Manual, The Key, and Zero Limits. His latest book is entitled Attract Money Now. Joe has recorded many audio programs, including The Awakening Course, The Missing Secret, and The Secret to Attracting Money. Joe starred in the popular movie The Secret and has been featured on Larry King. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, thanks. Thanks for joining us today. You have quite an impressive resume. You know, your work is wonderful, but from all that we know, your life was not always on such a positive track. At one time, you were homeless. And can you just share a little bit about your story? What led to that point in your life?
Well, I'll be glad to. I used to not talk about it until people said it was inspiring to hear that somebody was dirt poor and homeless and in poverty and bankrupt, but yet went on, transcended it, and now has all these books out, appears in movies, TVs, and on shows like this. So, yeah, I was homeless in Dallas decades ago, and it wasn't because I was into any sort of drugs or alcohol or self-abuse of some sort. It was because I had a dream, I was following it, and I had invested in companies that went bankrupt, and before you know it, I didn't have anything, and I was literally on the streets. People would say, "What kind of car did you live in?" And I would pause and look at them thinking, gosh, a car would have been so nice to live in. I didn't have that. Yet I persisted, and I left homelessness, went into poverty. That was a long time as well. Also declared bankruptcy a couple times and started to get some of my sea legs in Houston. I had my first book published in 1985. And from there, it was just, doing one thing after the other. I just released, I think, my 53rd book, which tells you that persistence pays off, because over time you end up with your own shelf in the bookstore. And, ending up in movies, doing well on the Internet, but it is not in any way, shape, or form an overnight success unless you define overnight as like 30 years.
Well, Joe, a lot of people today, they work hard, they've had investment issues, things that really are not in their control, and they find themselves in a similar type situation. What would you say to these people who supposedly do everything right and still end up in such a situation? That's
a wonderful question. I wrote the book you mentioned, Attract Money Now. I wrote that for the Joe Vitale of 30 years ago, because I was thinking, what could have helped that person? And then I'm hearing from all the people out there who say they lost their job, or they have a disability, or they lost their health insurance or investment, whatever it happens to be. There's all kinds of stories out there. And what I've come face to face is it's the reality that you are personally involved and responsible for what's going on in your life. And when you first hear that, it's like, oh, no, I don't want to hear that. That can't even be possibly true. How can I be involved for the economy going under? How can I be involved for a bad investment? How can I be involved with my company laying me off? Yet, on the higher consciousness way of looking at this, and I'm not really going metaphysical, I'm really going psychological, we are actually creating this reality, this scenario. And almost all of us have self-sabotage issues. I did too. And it wasn't until I faced them and realized that part of the reason I was homeless was because of my personal choices. And when I was in poverty, part of the reason I was in there was because of my personal belief system. So I wrote Attract Money Now, the book I actually give away to anybody that wants it at the website, attractmoneynow.com, to help people, to help the Joe of 30 years ago, to help the people saying they're struggling now. But the very first step is to swallow your pride and realize that you are directly involved in the creation of what you're going through. It doesn't mean you're to blame. It doesn't mean you're guilty. It doesn't mean you're bad. But it does mean that we have unconscious beliefs that we need to dust off, make conscious, and then release.
So you're talking about those thoughts that I know I have a million times a day with everything that's wrong in my life, and rather than what's right.
Yeah, and most of us have about 100,000 thoughts a day, and 99,000 of them are all, maybe 99,900 and some of them are all negative. And if we think about this, we know it, because we hear in our own head things like, this isn't going to work out, I'm not the right person, I'm destined to fail, I've always had these problems, everybody always says no to me, there's always got to be another wrench thrown in any dream I have. Those are the thoughts most of us have. We rarely have the pep talk type thoughts. We rarely have a cheerleader in our brain that is saying, you can do it, today's going to be today, and if it isn't today, it'll be tomorrow, and you have to hold up your enthusiasm and hold up your energy and keep taking action. Most of us don't have that. And what I've learned is that we can create it, and we need to create it, else we will be a type of victim to the programming that's out there, because most of the media, most of the conversation, the gossip and everything is all put down. It's all negative. It's all not helping.
Well, in the beginning, what I'd like to touch upon, and we're going to get back to all these wonderful things that you're pointing out and teaching us, but when you were at your lowest point, when you were homeless, when you were in poverty, was there such a time when you just said, I can't take this anymore? Did you ever have thoughts of suicide? Did you ever think that life is just too hard?
Yeah, I got chills with that question because that is such a personal one. But the truth is, and I need to say it so people know this, is yes, I actually bought a gun at one point. I actually remember walking with it with the full intent of ending my life, really feeling like I can't take it. There's no end in sight. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And also beating myself up, saying I've done everything right. I guess the universe, God, everybody's against me. It's just not stacked in my favor. So, of course, I went through those dark nights of the soul, and I actually did it more than once. And what pulled me through, and this is the thing that I want everybody to remember, what pulled me through was the hope, was the curiosity, was the optimism that maybe tomorrow would be different. And thank goodness I didn't end my life, because had I done it, I would have missed out on a career that is phenomenal. I would have missed out on traveling around the world, being on all these TV shows from Larry King to Oprah to everything else, to being all these movies, to having all these best-selling books, to having wonderful relationships, to being in this wonderful luxury lifestyle I have now. That only came because I dusted myself up, kind of took a deep breath, got my backbone strengthened, and said, look, I'm going to do it. One more day, one more week, one more month. I don't know when the turning point's coming, but the sun always rises again. The sun always comes up, and that's what carried me through.
And it goes back to the old one day at a time.
Absolutely. That model, which it's from AA, but it works for everything. You focus on today, and I mean, I'm talking to your listeners, I'm talking to me, I'm reminding myself of this. We focus on actually even just this moment. Because if we can be in this moment, everything's actually fine in this moment. We're living, we're breathing, we probably ate something, we probably have something to do later. Everything's fine in this moment. We let our monkey mind chase us up trees because of its fears, because of its projected concerns. And I'm not saying that we don't need to be looking at reality and choices in the future, but the more we can be in this moment, the more we can focus on today and do what today asked of us, the sooner we can have the results that we want, the better results we want.
Joe, when did you first start to come up with the law of attraction and apply that to your life?
Well, during the years of being in poverty, I was still reading a lot of books. Thank goodness for the public library, because I could live there, read books there, and didn't have to pay a penny. And I was absorbing everything I could in the self-help and the psychological and the metaphysical. And I came across old books about the law of attraction. And when I mean old books, these are like 1907. There were books like Thought Vibration by William Walker Atkinson that were very easy to read and very conversational. And he was talking about this law that many people now know of because of the movie The Secret and because of my own books. But that was coming out in the early 1900s. And I would read that going, what is this law and how do I get to use this law? And then as I explored it some more, I came across the work of Jerry and Esther Hicks and their Abraham material, and I was actually deeply involved in helping them promote their works. I wrote the foreword to their very first book, Sarah, in later years. But what happened is that I became very acquainted with it, and I started to use it. And that's when results started to come, because now I realized, it's my beliefs, it's my energy, it's my feelings in this moment that are sending out a signal to attract something to match it. So when I had all that negativity in me and all that worry, what I attracted were things that were negative or worrisome. When I started to flip it, and this wasn't overnight because we didn't have all the tools and all the books and the internet and everything when I was learning this, and I was doing it on my own. When I was starting to do it, it was a slow process, but as I slowly could move into feeling better and focusing on more of what I wanted, slowly things started to change. I would get little things published, an article. I had a play produced in 1979. First book came around in 1985. So doors started to open because of this law of attraction, but I found it through old books.
Joe, before break, we started to touch upon the law of attraction. For our listeners who are not familiar with this, can you give us a little bit of information about what this is and how we can apply it to our lives?
Well, gladly, and this is a big question, and it's something everybody needs to know about because we're going through life pretty much unconscious. We don't know that our thoughts and feelings and beliefs are determining our reality. We just feel like it's all happening to us, and then we react. We don't even respond. So the law of attraction is one of the strings going on behind the wizard's curtain. And what that means is everything you have happening to you in your life, you have unconsciously attracted because of the beliefs you have in your mind. Now, I purposely say unconsciously attracted, and I also use the word beliefs purposely, because when people hear about the law of attraction and they hear, oh, your thoughts create your reality, or my thoughts are attracting the things I have in my life, they'll immediately start to argue with it and say, well, I'm not thinking about bankruptcy, I'm not thinking about being laid off, but here it is happening. And I quickly point out, it's not the thoughts you typically consciously think, it's the thoughts in your unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is far deeper, far richer, far more powerful than the conscious mind. The conscious mind is aware of about 40 bits of information at any moment, and the unconscious mind is aware of about 11 million bits of information in any one moment. Your belief system, your paradigm about the world, about your mindset about life, is in your unconscious mind. And so your life is being attracted to you as a direct match to the beliefs in your unconscious mind. That's the law of attraction.
Now, you also talk about another law of right action. What is that about?
Well, the problem that people have with the law of attraction, and some people that are skeptical will see the movie The Secret or hear about the law of attraction and say, look, they critique it by saying it advises people to sit, meditate, visualize, and then their life will change. And that will happen somewhat. But I've learned that the law of right action means creation is a co-creation. If there's anything you want in your life, whether it's a better relationship or better health or more money, the house, car, job, whatever it happens to be, you don't just sit and visualize it. You don't just sit and change your thoughts. That's all engaging the law of attraction. But you have to physically do something because manifestation is a co-creation process. So I say you have to engage the law of right action, which means you act on inspired thinking. You want to attract a job, and maybe the inspired thinking is to go read my book, Attract Money Now. Maybe it's to go listen to somebody, to attend a seminar, go to a library, search on the Internet, and Google the subject or business you want to open. I don't know what it is for each person, but each person has a little nudge within them to do something. Most people talk themselves out of it. Mm-hmm. When you do it, now you're acting on the law of right action.
Okay, so someone who may find themselves in transition, whether it be from a divorce or death or just, just trying to find who they are, mm-hmm. it's one point is to have the thoughts, but you just can't sit back and think. You need to take some kind of action, and that's what the first step would be?
Yeah, absolutely. It all happens. It's an inside job. You work on your beliefs first. But if somebody has the belief that it's going to work out and they still don't take action, there's an example of self-sabotage. There's an example right there of somebody who says, okay, I know I have to make that phone call, or I know I have to fill out this form, or I know I want to go visit so-and-so, or I know I want to go read this book, and they don't do it. They're not doing it because of another belief within them. And then at that point, they're not taking the right action. So the very first step is you got to take care of your belief system inside yourself, which is causing the law of attraction to bring you what you have. As you take care of that, you'll start to see what the next moves are for you. And, of course, that's when you engage the law of right action and you actually do whatever it is you're being nudged or asked to do.
So when you sit home and you have these thoughts and you do nothing about it, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely. You're going to sit there, and tomorrow is going to be a whole lot like today because you didn't change today by getting up and doing what you were being asked to do. When I say asked to do, I mean it's an intuition thing. Mm-hmm. Something in your gut says, this is what I'm supposed to do. But most people will say, no, not me. I don't have the time. I don't have the experience. I don't have the money. I don't have whatever. And they'll talk themselves out of it. That's self-sabotage. That's excuseville. And that won't get the results they want.
Dr. Joe Vitale, it was a pleasure talking to you today, and we need to get you back here to share some more of your wonderful words of wisdom with our listeners. Thank you very much.
Glad to do it. Godspeed to you and your listeners.
This is Joan Herman, and this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Thank you for tuning in today.